It's great to be back.
Last time you were here was November, and you basically laid out that you thought Donald Trump did not ever want to be president. What he would so much rather be doing is live tweeting Fox and Friends.
Exactly.
And then this morning happened. So is that his dream? Like, what do you make of it?
I think that there's reporting that indicates that he wants to do that every morning.
Yeah.
And they have to basically have to hold him back.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, there was a moment, the interview, at the end of the interview,
Yeah.
when you're interviewing the President of the United States, you push that as long as you can, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got a million questions, you keep them there. It's like a scene in a movie where they're tracing the phone call.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, but it was the opposite. They treated him like he was a crazy caller in their call-in show.
Yeah.
And they had to get him off. So by the end of it, it's like, well, you're probably busy. And he's like, no, I'm pretty good. I got all day, really.
Yeah. It was definitely wasn't thinking I got to run out and get that gift for Melania. Yeah. It was very surreal to watch those three hosts who probably more often than not agree with the president, but they did certainly look as though they realized, oh, this might not be in his best interest. What do you think the energy was like in the control room for something like that?
You know, that is a great question. You can see on their faces that they are slightly horrified.
Yeah.
Steve Doocy does a patented grimace grin.
Yeah.
Where he like slaps his knees, he's like,
Yeah.
there's like a lot of that. And so in the control room, I mean, if I were in the control room, you're thinking like, keep him going, keep him going, keep him going. But I think at a certain point, I don't know if there's like a protective instinct that kicked in that control room, but they just moved it away.
It's interesting, too, because obviously, you know, Donald Trump loves to frame himself as a victim, and it's either the media or the Democrats, but so many of the things that he has done, he set into motion. Obviously, when, you know, he fired Comey, that started a bunch of dominoes. The fact that Jeff Sessions had to recuse himself started dominoes. It would be so ironic if going on Fox and Friends put him in a legal jackpot.
I mean, literally an hour later, there was a filing in Southern District of New York in which the government's attorneys referenced the thing that he said on Fox and Friends when he basically said, yeah, he's barely my lawyer, essentially. While they're arguing simultaneously like he's his lawyer, all that information's privileged.
It is, it's trippy to watch.
It's trippy to watch, and it's also, I mean, it's why people have made this point. He is the ultimate nightmare client.
Yeah.
I mean, every lawyer that I've ever talked to is just like, I would lose my mind. I could not put up with it. It's the worst possible thing because you've got the most famous man in America and the most powerful man in America and the person who will not listen to you and a person who always thinks he can get by.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I mean, that's, I think, been that will ultimately, if it is his undoing, that will be his undoing.
And he also hates losers. So if you were his lawyer and you lost, he's not the kind of guy who's like, at least you did your best, Ted. You know, hey, we gave him hell. So today seems like a real crystallization of what we have come to expect from the Trump presidency, although it seems like every day it's a little bit more. You know, you have Mike Pompeo confirmed by the Senate. This is a very hawkish Secretary of State now. You have Dr. Ronny Jackson stepping away from his VA nomination. You have Scott Pruitt basically having to defend himself against basically these, calls that he has been a complete violator of ethics.
10 different investigations.
10 different investigations. How do you think it's just too much for people to process?
I think it is hard to process. I mean, it really is. And there's a Simpsons moment I keep coming back to where the doctor tells Montgomery Burns that he's being kept alive because all these different diseases are fighting each other. And it's like, there's a little bit of that with like Trump scandals. Even Scott Pruitt right now, like we had an editorial meeting this morning and I was like, well, we just got to pick one. Because we can't do the whole show on Scott Pruitt. So, like, are we doing the phone booth? Are we doing the thing he rented from the lobbyist?
Yeah.
Are we doing the security stuff? Like, what are we doing on Scott Pruitt? So I think that there is a degree to which the sheer volume of what's been coming out of the White House and the administration weirdly does kind of help them a little bit because it can be very difficult to focus.
So I do think it helps him, but what it doesn't seem to do is help the people who come in his orbit. So, you know, Scott Pruitt helped him today by also being a man of no ethics. You know, Dr. Ronny Jackson, to some degree, helped him for being a guy who was in the news that wasn't, a Trump story as much as other ones. Is it like, do you think now people are realizing, like, oh, I can't get near this guy?
I think that has started to dawn on people. And I think there's a line that Josh Marshall is a writer, he calls Trump a dignity wraith.
Yeah.
Right? Like, which is like, if you come in his door, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's amazing. People go in with great reputations. I mean, David Shulkin, who was the VA secretary, holdover from Obama, confirmed unanimously, viewed as a really stand-up good guy, has allegations that he, improperly spent money on Wimbledon tickets. He gets fired unceremoniously in this very public, humiliating way. Replaced by Ronnie Jackson. Again, holdover from an Obama White House position, has a generally good public profile and a good reputation. Watches that reputation absolutely be destroyed in the matter of 48 hours, and then sort of slinks back into the job. If you come into contact with him, you will have your reputation destroyed.
So I want to ask, because I hadn't really thought of this. You talk about Shulkin and Jackson, obviously they're Obama holdovers.
Yeah.
Do you think it doesn't seem like they started acting more like Trump. It was more that a light went on Trump.
I think it's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think Jackson's a very weird case that I think I'm having a hard time figuring
Sure,
out.
because he was a Bush doctor, he was an Obama doctor. They all seem to love him.
And I think it's both, right? I mean, I think one of it is that people are going to assume the worst if you're in his orbit,
Yeah.
and will apply that standard to you. I think also what we've seen happen, and I'm not sure if this happened to Shulkin, but I think it's happened with others, is that the message is sent from the top down about what's allowed,
Right.
And if you ever worked in a big organization, whether it's in government or a people are cutting corners, if you know people are hustling and being dodgy, that tends to trickle down throughout an organization, and everyone else starts looking to get theirs. And I think that's also been a big factor in a lot of the scandals coming out of the administration.